So good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. And apologies for running a few minutes late. We are very glad that you're able to join us today. So in today's session, we're going to be focusing on the supplier auditing features in QT9 QMS software. So just to have a quick interface on using the webinar tools. So just that we can answer questions for you during the webinar. So please be sure and use the tool in the toolbar and enter questions, and we have people that can answer those questions for you during the presentation. Just a note also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on your QT9 newsfeed afterwards. So one more item I would like to go through before we get into the main content is our webinar series. So it's designed to provide you with, say, free webinars to get you the most out of the system. So if you have additional questions after this webinar, you can schedule a one-to-one session with our training team by emailing qmssupport@qt9software.com or reach out to your customer success representative. The last thing I'd like to point out is that at the end of the session, you will be invited to take a brief survey, and this gives you an opportunity to tell us how you felt about the webinar, anything we can do to improve the webinar experience and the content that we provide. So I just want to provide an introduction to the webinar. So again, welcome to everybody, and this webinar is intended to outline how to use QT9 QMS Audit Module to carry out supplier audits. So supplier audits, either on-site or remote, would form part of your overall supplier selection, evaluation, and monitoring process. The focus here is to show you what features we have available to support supplier auditing and how you can have your suppliers directly respond to audit findings via the supplier portal. As with all of our modules, you can use them in a way that suits your own internal best practice. You don't have to use all the features, but we just want to make sure you're aware of the full capability of our software. So just looking quickly at some background, so we will look at some aspects of the ISO standards relating to audits, the different types of audits. I will look at the QT9 modules which support supplier auditing and monitoring. I will compare supplier evaluations, which is a module we have, and supplier audits. Then I'll do an overview of the supplier audit process. So we've got 9 phases. Phases 1 to 3 is like the preparation. Phases 4 to 6 is the audit execution, and phases 7 to 9, corrective action and follow-up. So in each section, I will complete a practical demo to show you how QT9 lines up with these stages. And then I will look at how all this looks in terms of the supplier record in QT9, and we will look at reporting. And then finally, I will look at an audit documentation pack and how it maps over onto QT9 records. So in terms of the ISO standards, I'm not referencing any particular ones, but all of the ISO standards and other regulations stipulate requirements regarding control of suppliers, subcontractors, outsourced process, so essentially your supply chain. So you would identify the risk profile of the supplier, identify criteria for adding suppliers to your approved suppliers list, and then criteria for the monitoring and reevaluation of that supplier. So auditing is a tool that is usually used for high impact, high risk suppliers. Sometimes just an initial audit with subsequent audits based on performance. In some cases, high-risk suppliers may be audited, for example, annually, every 2 or 3 years, if performance meets certain standards. Audits may be on-site, and typically this will be the case for, let's say, outsourced manufacturing, or it might be remote. And by the way, QT9 Audit Module can be used in either case. So just looking at a supplier audit, what type of audit is this? So it's considered a second party audit. So your first party is an internal audit, second party would be customer or supplier audit, and then third party would be your certification audit, regulatory body audit, FDA audit. I just wanted to pop in a tip here. This guideline, ISO 19011-2018, it's an international standard, provides guidelines for auditing management systems. It's a framework for audit programs, internal, external audits. It looks at auditor competence. It applies to all ISO standards, and the principles outlined in the standard can be used for first, second, and third party audits. It's an excellent guidance document, extremely comprehensive, and I highly recommend it. And QT9, by the way, can be used for all of 3 categories of audits, even though we're just focusing on supplier auditing for today. So just looking at the modules that we have available for supplier monitoring. So we have our Maintain Suppliers module. Of course, you have your background information, corrective actions, non-conformances, surveys, evaluations, and so on, your certificates. Then we have your supplier evaluations. We have your supplier surveys. We have the audit module, which we'll be focusing on today. And then we have our supplier portal, where all of our customers have this portal as part of their subscription. So just moving on to, we do have, as I mentioned, a supplier evaluation module, but then we have the audit module. What is the difference? So why would you use one rather than the other? So just to explain a little bit, supplier evaluations allows you to apply numerical scores to a supplier. So you have custom questions with weighting and scoring per question and overall scoring per evaluation. You can also, in the one evaluation, compare scoring for all or a group of suppliers. For example, you want to look at a comparison between all your equipment suppliers. Now, it does not link to follow-up actions, which is where the audit module might be more useful to you. So the audit module allows you to carry out a more detailed audit using custom standards and checklists, where you can turn findings into corrective action requests, which can in turn be assigned to suppliers. Suppliers may then respond to these corrective action requests via the supplier portal, and I will be demoing this today to show you how it works. You can, of course, use both, but today we'll be focusing on just the audit module. We will not be covering supplier evaluations in this webinar, but please reach out to your customer success rep or the help center or QT9U if you're interested in this module. So the audit module within QT9 QMS, this is just an overview of the audit module. Again, you have these links to CAPAs, you centralize your records, you have built-in compliance tools and so on, real-time tracking. So this is what we're going to be using as a tool for our supplier audits in today's webinar. So just wanting to look at an overview of the supplier audit process. So again, this is a 9-step. We won't be going through each individual step. I've divided them into 3 separate chunks. So you have 1 to 3, which is the notification, planning, and pre-audit preparation. Then we will have phase 4 to 6, which is the audit execution, findings and reporting, and then the last stage, which is the corrective action, implementation, and follow-up, and so on. So firstly, we will be looking at this side, the initial notification, the planning, and the preparation. So now let's go to our QT9 site and have a look at a practical example. So let me just check that you guys can see that. So we are now here on our QT9 homepage. And I'm going to start off by showing you how to set up the supplier audit record. We will look at the setup of the audit module to ensure that you're ready for supplier auditing if you're not already doing this. So we just go to Manage, Maintain, and we go to the audit. Here is our drop-down categories for the audit setup. Firstly, you can set up auditors. So here's where your auditors are set up. And again, setting up a new auditor, very straightforward. Save your details, and then you assign to a site. Then we can look at setting up audit categories. So again, audit and audit categories. Here is where you would set up your recurrence of the audit. This means that when you close out one audit, it will automatically prompt you to schedule the next audit. So you would, for example, you could have an audit category for level 1 or high-risk suppliers, which recurs every year. Or you could have equipment suppliers, which maybe recur every 3 years. So again, you can customize your reminders for rescheduling your supplier audits using this. This is essentially a risk-based approach to supplier auditing and supplier managing. So next, looking at audit types. So again, manage, maintain, audit, and looking at audit types. And this is where you define whether approvals are necessary. So with the audit module, the relevance of this is that any findings that result in a corrective or preventive action will not be created until the audit is actually approved. So, or completed in the case where approval is not required. So for some of you here, you will have audits that just require approval. Some of them will just be you completed. So it's one of those buttons, and that will allow you to actually create the actions. And I'll show you how this works in the demo, the practical session. So these are the basic settings. Now we're going to move on to building a supplier audit process. Now I'm not actually going to build the process in this demo because, again, just be conscious of time. But I have one already set up and I can show you this. So just go to Manage and Audit, and then we're looking at our processes. So here I have one set up earlier, and I'm calling this Supplier Audit for Electronic Component Supplier. So you can have as many processes as you like, and you can set them up customized to the supplier that you're auditing. So I am using, sorry, I just accidentally pressed the wrong thing there. So bear with me. Do apologize for that. So anyway, so we're back looking at that process. So you can look at, so here we have one mandatory tab and 2 optional tabs. So here we have the elements. I just used just a few examples from elements 7 and 8 from ISO 9001, as you can see over here, the standard name. But you can, of course, have any standards that you like in this. They're completely customizable. So when I hit on assign element, you can see here it's linking to all these quality standards here. These are just a few I have in my demo site, but you can add, for example, you could have a custom standard that you use for auditing your suppliers. It's completely customizable, and then you can pick elements from that process. So here I just have a few. Didn't want to have too many because as this is a demo situation. So this tab is mandatory because when you assign findings or non-conformities, you have to link them to one of these elements. So the next tab is optional, but very, very useful. So there are actually a couple of functions for this tab, the Documents tab. One of them being, it can be used for defining the scope and criteria of the audit. So you could, for example, include the SOPs that you're auditing maybe as part of the audit. It can, these by the way are always pulling from current documents. So if I select add documents, these are actually all my current documents. So these are actually pulling from current documents, and I will show you in the live example how you can ensure that you're always using the most current revision of the document. So the other function is that you can attach documents that are relevant to the audit. For example, templates for your opening and closing meeting signatures, your agenda for your opening and closing meeting. This is just your general SOP for supplier auditing, that type of thing. So this is for auditor convenience. And again, I'll show you in the actual audit record how this all pulls together. The third tab is the checklist. Now, again, this is also optional, but it's a very useful way of building customized checklists that you can attach to your processes. Now, we're not going to get into building the checklist during this session, but you can, of course, reach out to us if you want any help on this. So I will show you where the checklists are set up. They're set up in a different part of the Manage Maintain. So you go back into Audit and you have your audit checklists. And here is where you can build your checklists. And you have unlimited checklists, completely customizable, but you will always link them to a process, link your documents, and then your process then is ready to apply to your audit. So that's kind of the steps that you take. Set up your process, have your checklist attached, have your documents attached, and now you're good to go. So now I am ready to set up the audit record, and I am going to go ahead and go to ISO functions and auditing. And here I'm going to set up my new audit. Now, you will only be doing this necessarily maybe once, because with the recurrence feature with the audit module, it will automatically create the next audit. So the setup that I'm showing you here, you would essentially be doing it once, like adding the process and that type of thing. The next ones then will happen automatically, and I'll show you exactly how this works. So I'm just going to hit on New Audit, select your site, select your audit type. I'm just going to go for Supplier Audit, select your category, Supplier Audit also. I'm going to just say Audit of Angel Electronics, because this is the supplier we're going to use for our demo today. And I'm just going to pop in today's date, but this can be changed afterwards, by the way. Hit on Save. And now I'm going to go in and open the record. So this is 2070 is the one we just created here. And you can see that there's a few things then you have to do here to get this audit ready. So the first one is assign the supplier. So I'm going to assign Angel Electronics, and then I'm also going to assign an auditor and add auditor. So you can see now you have your supplier added and your auditor added. And I'm just going to save this so before moving on. So the first tab that we'll be looking at is processes. And right now you can see that is blank. So you do need to select your process. This is why we had it ready already, and I would name it so that it makes it easy for me to find the right checklist or the process when I'm looking for it. So again, it's coming up as the first one here. So again, you can see these are just a few elements I've attached to this process. You just hit on the little box here at the top, and this will actually select everything then down below and just select Add to Audit. Now this just takes a few seconds to cycle. It will take a little bit longer if you have, 20, 30, 40 elements attached. So, and by the way, just a reminder, if you have any questions, just pop them into the bar in the webinar tools and somebody will answer your questions. So you can see now that my process have been added. You can add more processes here if you like, but this is our basic process. Then you can see now our checklist has come across. So the checklist does not work independently. It comes across with the process and it automatically populates once you have that linkage already in the setup. So just here, moving on, I'm not going to start filling this out now. I just want to explain a little bit about the record before I start filling it out. So you can see here, you can add notes in here. You can select if it conforms, does not conform. You can save. Now, another tip is that I always put in the element title in here, because when we are doing the results sections, which is like the non-conformities, it's good to be able to correlate what element did we not conform to. So there is unlimited space for notes here, by the way, so it looks small, but you can actually see you can pull that all out. You can print the checklist, but essentially you can fill this out on a laptop or a tablet at your supplier premises. So you can actually take this with you, fill it out at the supplier premises. All you need is an internet connection and you're good to go. You cannot insert images here. However, you can attach them under related files. So here we have unlimited file attachments here, any file type up to 150 megabytes, and that is going to be increasing later on that year, that capacity. So I'm just going to go back to the checklist, and as you can see here, you have all of your questions are listed down here. Moving on to associated documents. So this is where you would be doing this kind of just prior to the audit to make sure that it's fresh. But when I hit on reload docs, you can see that it's actually going to bring in the most current revision of the document, and it will tell you the revision that it's at. And you can see all I have to do then, so from the auditor's perspective, it does make things very easy for them. They're not having to go to current documents and look for anything. Everything should be here. So for example, if I double click on this, it's opening up the document here for me. So again, very convenient for the auditor. I'm just going to set an approver here. I'm just going to set myself as an approver. And the other thing, the last thing I want to show you before I move on is the results tab. And this is where we would be documenting any, you could call them findings or nonconformities. Essentially, we're going to be translating these into corrective actions for the purpose of this webinar. So at this point, oh yes, the last one is the notes. So we have notes. You can actually put anything that you like in here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put in just a basic agenda. So just going to pop in an agenda here that I have just copied and pasted. But you could put in here general notes about the audit. You could, for example, say if you had checked non-conformance from previous audits of the supplier, you could actually put your full audit trail in here as well. So while we have the checklist, some auditors prefer just to have an audit trail that they might put in a Word document. You can actually put all of that in here. Again, you have that unlimited space for notes. So at this point, I'm just going to say before I go any further, and I am going to say that at this point, if you wanted to, you could email this directly to your supplier at this point, and I'll show you how to do that. So you can just select on email audit, select recipient type. So is it an auditor, customer, supplier? But it's actually supplier. And then you can select from the drop down here. Just going to say, I just pick somebody different, confusing otherwise. And I'm just going to say add to recipients. So it just puts in the recipient's email here, and you can put a message, hi, see attached. Of course, you can do this by normal email, but I just wanted to show you that we have these options to email within QT9. When I click on this button, it actually is going to send this report to the supplier. It's going to tell them in the email, you have an audit coming up, these are the details. And what it actually attaches onto that email then, I don't want to be opening too many screens here. So I'm just going to show you what the supplier actually receives. So what they receive is this. When you go to print audit, and you can see they will receive this in PDF format. So I'm just going to export it to PDF so it's easier just to scan through. Just going to make it a bit bigger here. So you can see this is what the supplier would receive in that case that I just showed you. Now again, by the same token, you can just run this to PDF and email it as per normal. But you can see it gives you the audit number, the audit date, the audit name, the status, the category, and so on. Who are the auditors? What are the elements being covered? And also the checklist. You can share the questions. This is what we're going to be going through as part of the audit, and also the agenda for the day and so on, and maybe the approver. This is probably going to be the lead auditor that's going to be signing off on this audit. So I just wanted to show you that. So at this point, I just want to say that we would then go through our internal preparation. So here we have our audit ready. Just going to say before I move on. You can carry out then your internal preparation. Again, this is still part of the first 3 steps of the audit process. So by going to the supplier information. So let's go to suppliers and maintain suppliers, and then I can just go into Angel Electronics and everything is there for you. You have previous audits, their certifications, corrective actions. I won't go through everything, but all of these inspections, even surveys and so on, everything is there for you. So you can do your kind of background information. You can even start populating your checklist even before you start the supplier audit. So let's say that we have all our background information gathered. We're now ready to start the audit, and I'm just going to, I'm just going to go back to the presentation, and we have this stage now completed, and we're now onto this stage. So now we're getting ready to actually go on site with the auditor, do the audit. We have do our findings, we have our closing meeting, and we have our audit reporting. So we're now getting onto this stage. So I'm just going to go back into our QT9 site and just going to go back to the home page here. And when you're on site, we're just going to go back into the audit record. So ISO functions, auditing, and this is our audit 2070. So we are now ready to start populating this audit. So at the start of the meeting, of course, you can also go through this. So you have your agenda here. Again, you can just print and have everything put up the agenda. You know, the way at the opening meeting, you always kind of go through the agenda. Are all these timings okay? Is everybody here? Do we need to move anything around? Are the break times okay? You can do all that at the opening meeting, and then you can keep a record. So again, you have your associated documents here. If you want to keep any records, you can fill them out here and just, again, attach them as related files. So these are all your audit evidence, audit documents. They can all be attached on here. Again, unlimited file attachments. So just going back to starting the actual audit, let's say you've had the opening meeting done. You've maybe taken signatures if that's what you do. Again, you can just modify this according to your own process. So I'm going to start off with the checklist. So I'm just putting in quick answers here for the purpose of time. So I'm just going to say are adequate resources and so on provided. I'm just going to say yes. Of course, in real terms, you will be putting in a lot more detail here. I'm just going to say conforms and save. So you just go line by line and save as you're going. The next one I'm going to say yes, environment. Okay, and again, just going to click on it's conforming and save. And then here is where we are going to have we're going to find an issue here. So we're looking at calibration, and we have found a piece of equipment that is out of cal. So I just copying and pasting this just to save typing. We found equipment out of calibration, EQ, so on and so forth, 2 months overdue. We're not going to tick this button because it's not conforming, just going to save it. Now you can do your findings at the end, but I'm just going to say that we can actually do it one by one. So I'm going to do this as we're doing it. So the next section you go into is results. So our issue here is, you can see 7.1.5, go into results and assign results. Okay, so you have the scheduled process and the elements up here. This is what I was saying at the start when you're building your process. This is why you need to make sure that these are there so you can allocate the findings against them, your non-conformities essentially. So the issue is with 7.1.5, which is the calibration module. Responsible party, you can say yourself for now, because you will be assigning the corrective action to the supplier when we get back to our own, facility, and we're doing the follow-up and the corrective actions. But for now, you could leave it at you. This can be changed afterwards as well. Results, major, minor. So major and minor are going to generate a corrective action, which is what we want for our outcome in the case of a supplier audit. We don't really want to use these because they do not generate actions with the supplier. So we don't have that ability to link preventive actions to suppliers. So I would say use major or minor. I'm just going to keep it at minor. Corrective action type, then going to say audit issue, or I'm going to say, or supplier issue. Actually, I think I had that down there. Select priority, I'm going to say it's high, and I'm just going to paste this text in here again and assign results. So I just want to show you what this looks like. So you can see here, I'm just going to leave it at one finding, and I'm not going to go through the rest of the checklist because I just want to show you the overall process, how it works. You will notice here that the action link is not showing up here. This is a question I sometimes get asked by my customers. They're wondering why it's not showing up. The reason is that the audit itself has to be either completed if it doesn't require approval, or approved if it does need approval, before these links will show up. So I will show you when we do close this out how this link shows up. It's a hot link and it will take us directly to the record. So I'm just going to save this, and I am going to check that I assigned approvers, and essentially I've everything done in the sense that I'm just doing a sample for the demo purposes. And my last step then is to, now you can at this point, if you want to go through your findings and so on with the supplier as part of your closing meeting before you actually approve and close out that meeting. So that's one way you could do it, or you can just submit and approve and then share the report afterwards. Again, depends on how you normally do this process yourself in practice. Right now, I'm just going to submit the audit. And I am going to, I would submit it to myself. So I am going to then just, okay, so I'm just going to go to submit it to me so that I can easily see it. And here is the audit 2070. And I can go through everything and see what was done. You can see the checklist information is grayed out because it's no longer editable. Results, any related files I can see up along here as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and approve this audit. Notes are optional in this case. And as you can see now, this is the recurrence feature. So we had set that as a 12-month. This type of audit is 12 months. So as you can see, it's just going 1 year hence. And you can select the auditors. And again, these can be changed after, but it's just to have it in the schedule as, so it'll show up in your audit module as scheduled. Schedule next audit. And as we're cycling there, I'm going to then go back and show you then how we do the follow-up. So we're now at the stage where we are going to do the, so we have this part done, and we are now going on to the corrective action and follow-up stage. So here's where we're back at our own company, we're going through the corrective actions, and we want to now assign them to our suppliers. Because we'll be using the supplier portal as part of this, I just wanted to introduce the supplier portal. You may or may not be using it. If you aren't, I highly recommend you look into using it because you already have it. So improving your supplier relationships with our supplier web portal, it's a two-way communication. Both parties can log in anytime to view real-time data, status updates. It allows for a single source of truth for supplier-related information. Also, very importantly, Supplier Portal is license-free, meaning that there's no limit on supplier login. So even if you've 1,000 suppliers logging at the same time, there's no limit. So this is actually a license-free product that you already have. So I'm just going to jump back into our QT9 and take you through the final stages of the audit record. So now you can see this is the audit that I just approved, and you can see now under results, now our action link is showing up. So this is our CA76. This is the finding that we had in the audit. So I'm just going to select on this, and it's just asking you to confirm navigation, and it's going to take me directly to the record. Now it's also going to refer back to the audit. So again, these hot links work both ways. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a few things to do with the record. I'm just going to say problem type. I'm going to say it was supplier issue. Angel Electronics already assigned to this because this came from a supplier audit. That's already done for you. I'm going to tick on supplier response required and assign to supplier. I'm not going to notify them yet because I just want to make sure that I have everything ready with this record before I do that. You have some options here as well. Of course, you do need a risk assessment, deviation, training record. These are all features with our CAPA module. So with the record itself, you can expand on this. So this information just came over from the audit module, but you can expand on this. Again, lots of space for information there. These fields like root cause and analysis, you will be referring most likely back to the supplier response. So the supplier response is here. Now this is actually, it's not called user defined in the heading, but it is actually a user defined field. So you can, this is done of course in the global settings for the UDFs, and this is completely customizable. So you can have different sections, you can have required or not required questions, you can have like multiple choice, you can have numeric input only. So these are really, really cool forms, almost like a form within a form that you can design customized for your supplier to respond to. And I'll show you how this looks then from the supplier point of view. So I don't think there's anything else we need to do here. I think we're pretty much ready to assign it to the supplier. So I'm just going to go ahead and notify the supplier. Now, what happens here is that, again, you don't have to be going outside QT9 and getting into your email and so on. This is actually sent, it just confirmed up there in a pop-up message that it has sent it to the supplier. So the supplier will have received an email telling them that they need to respond to this corrective action. So I'm going to show you now how to see this from the supplier's point of view. Just to note, you would typically not be seeing the supplier point of view, but you might want to look at it if you haven't used it before, you want to see what they're viewing, you want to troubleshoot. So it is possible to do this. I just want to show you where you find the link to the supplier portal. So you just go into Global and Settings, and you go to Portals, and you go to Supplier Portal, and this tells you your supplier's custom URL access. So essentially it will be your URL, just /suppliers. So it's very easy to find. So I'm going to log out, and I am going to just go into the address bar here and change this to suppliers. And now this is the supplier portal if you haven't seen it before. So I just have very simple login details, again, for time purposes, but you can make these logins and passwords as complex as you wish. Each supplier will only have one login, name and password, by the way, but it also asks for the name and the email of the person that's actually logging in. So you might have several people. I'm just going to put on Tom, for example, and log in. So now we know that Tom is the person that's actually responding to these actions. So, and again, all timelined as well. Everything is timelined. So you can see here, you know, you have your number. We won't focus on any of these, but you have a number of items the supplier can see. We're just going to focus on the corrective actions. So you can see here, this is Audit 2070. Again, we found equipment out of calibration. All the supplier has to do in order to respond to this is they go into the, now there is a help file as well, but it's pretty straightforward. There is the edit icon here. And when they select the edit icon, it again makes it very clear for them. It highlights in yellow what's relevant. So they can print the record, they can submit it, they can save it. It shows that it's open. It shows the due date. It shows as well Audit 2070. So if they already have that report, if you shared the report with them, then they can connect this to the actual audit also. They know, oh, this was the audit that the guys carried out last week. So you can see here then, while the supplier can see all these other tabs, they can't edit any of the tabs. The only tabs they can edit is this one, supplier response, and they can attach files. And by the way, you can attach files the other way as well. If you attach files to the actual CAPA, they will actually come through here. So for example, it might be your standard guidance for doing root cause analysis. Suppliers then can upload files as well, like if they had an Ishikawa diagram or something like that, they wanted to upload as part of their root cause analysis, they can do that. So again, you have this two-way communication. So with the supplier response, again, you can see all these questions. Again, these are, you've seen them from the other side, but here now we can actually edit. So I'm just going to put in some quick answers here, just that you can see on the other side, and I'm just going to put 0. Just going to say not applicable. And I'm going to say we used 5Y and then enter results, faulty equipment, and then the corrective action. Again, of course, this would be a lot more detailed in practice, but fixed equipment. Just to show you how this actually works. This is just a reminder you can put in if you'd ask them to provide any screening results or details or training records, that they would attach them on, and they would just check, yes, we have attached them on. Their final step then is just to submit. You can save as you're going along, of course, from the supplier's point of view. They can be working on this and saving and coming back to it. But right now we'll submit it because I want to show you the full cycle. So message successfully sent to responsible party. So that means that you, as the customer, the guys sitting on this call, you will be notified, okay, the supplier has responded to this corrective action and has submitted their response. So now I'm going to log out and I'm going to log back into the main portal so that we can see what this looks like from our side. So again, I'm just going to log in here and we will see what it looks like from this side and then how we close the whole thing out. Okay. So just going into ISO functions. Now, again, the email that I would have received will have a link to the corrective action, as you guys are used to getting the links to corrective actions and links to records in QT9. But I'm just going to go directly into it here. So we have my corrective actions, and this is the one from 2070. So I can pop into here and I can then go and check the supplier has responded. You can see the information that I typed in here is coming through. If they had uploaded files, they would show here. And what I would do then is I would just say, it might be just quite simply see supplier response. Spell, apologies, response. And again, you can do that because these are just minimum fields that you have to complete when submitting a corrective action. So we have our supplier response. We have this information here. I'm going to add an approver. I'm going to add myself. And you can also add verification notes, by the way, and the supplier can see all this in their portal. So I could add a verification note and say that, supplier sent proof of equipment being fixed. So again, you would have a lot more detail than this, but again, you can put through all these notes here if you want to, and then there is a final step. So I am now ready to actually submit this for approval. And it's now gone for approval. So again, I can find this through the, it should be actually showing up here, just going to submit it for me. So again, this is our corrective action. Again, I can check any details, because might be, sending it to somebody else. They can check the details, approve or reject. I'm going to approve in this case. With corrective actions and CAPAs, you do have to make a comment, and I'm just going to say accepted response and submit approval. And then, because I'm the only person, so if you're the only person or the last person on a corrective action or CAPA, then you will be asked to verify it now or schedule verification. So you can schedule it for some time in the future. If the supplier is working on these actions, you want to come back and check before you close it out. You can schedule that for another time. Or in this case, I'm just going to verify now because I want to close it out for the purpose of the demo, but you do have to put in notes. So checked that actions were done and save. Now, at this point, the supplier will be notified that this record is now closed. So essentially, this is the end of the audit process. Let's say if this was the only finding that it was, this is the end of the process. So what I want to show you before I move out of this is how you can quickly use our reporting feature here to look at the performance of a particular supplier in terms of audit results. So you just go to reporting, audit results reporting. Under field, you can go to supplier, and Angel Electronics is just the first one that's coming up. I'm just going to add the conditions so you can see supplier equals Angel Electronics. You can add more conditions if you like. You know, you can put in date formats if you like, and you can put in headers as well, by the way, for your report. All you got to do now is hit on generate report. So you can see this is a really nice, even for all of your internal audits, anything like this is a really useful report because it will show you where your elements are. So you can see for this particular supplier, you know, for example, you could see a trend where they're weak, you know, 7.1. I've been using this for the demo, but you might say there's obviously an issue with calibration in this company. So again, I just wanted to show you that. It's a quick report. And of course, you can export this to Excel. Now, I want to show you some, this is just the final section here now, guys, and I appreciate your patience so far. I do want to show you what we have in our business intelligence tool because we do have more advanced reporting capability. So I'm just going to introduce this. You may already have this, our BI tool or business intelligence tool. So this essentially allows you to create custom dashboards, an easy way to view your data, by the way, in real time. You can set up your homepage so when you log in, you're just seeing the information that you're interested in. So this is an example of a dashboard that I've set up for supplier quality. So it's just showing, you can see you have the pie chart, you have the bar graph, you have the line graph. You can change all of these in the live version of the BI tools. You can change the format. You can also drill down and drill up. So you can see the detail at the click of a button, very, very easy to use. You can also see these 3 buttons here. Now this is just a screen grab. So I just wanted to show you what these mean. You can actually export these to an image, to PowerPoint, to PDF, to Excel. So in particular, the PowerPoint and the PDF is very useful for generating information for, say, management reviews or, you know, quality meetings or things like that. You can very easily run off these reports. So just moving on to, this is just another example of a report from the BI tool. Again, you can see very colorful, and you can change you can drill down, drill up, and change the format. So just the very last thing that I want to cover is this audit documents in QT9. So again, we went through an audit plan. I wanted to start it off with the agenda, with the plan. In QT9, we have the audit record, which has the scope, the criteria, the agenda, the dates, the audit, the auditors, and so on, the elements, even the questions. Your opening, closing meeting minutes. So you have your audit record related files. We have an audit trail. We have our audit checklist. You have the audit findings. So here we call them results, and then you can change that, or you can convert that into a corrective action record. You could assign that to the supplier, and they can respond then directly through the portal. So again, you have this two-way communication. And then you have your audit report, which is the completed and approved audit report. So that is all I have for today. And I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. I hope you found it useful. I want to point out again that if you do have any questions or you want to expand on your modules, we are here to help you. You can talk to your customer success rep. As I mentioned earlier, there will be a quick survey at the end of this session, and we would really appreciate if you would take a few minutes to share your feedback. It's important to know how we're doing and that we are where we can improve with these webinars. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you again for your time, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon, and goodbye for now.